I tried to get my daughter Chelsea
They can expect stuff.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Thank you guys for coming. The first thing on our agenda tonight is I'm going to swear in our new board member. So Maribel, if you can come up. You have to raise your hand. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your name,
I, Maribel Ramirez,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Oregon
and the Constitution of the State of Oregon
and the laws thereof,
and the laws thereof,
and will faithfully and honorably demean myself
and will faithfully and honorably demean myself
in the office of the Director of the Nyssa School District Number 26,
in the office of Director of the Nyssa School District Number 26,
Position 2,
Position 2,
to which I have been appointed
to which I have been appointed
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my abilities,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. Okay, if you guys would like to take a minute and look at the agenda and adopt, see if there are any changes you'd like to make or adopt it as is. Anybody have any changes they'd like to make? Would someone like to make a motion to adopt?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the agenda as presented.
I will second that.
All in favor? Raise your right hand. Okay, motion is carried. Okay, we'll start with some commendations. Mr. Murray, would you like to start with the elementary?
Okay, our kindergarten through second grade nominee is Hendricks Deanna. Hendricks, would you like to come up, please? Hendricks is a second grader, but we also have information to share from his kindergarten first grade teacher, Mrs. Cutterback, who says, I really enjoyed teaching Hendricks in kindergarten and first grade. He was so easy to teach. He came to school ready to learn and had a great attitude for learning. He made such great progress so fast, which was fun to see. He rose to the top of the class quickly and just kept climbing. He was such a great helper in the classroom as well. When he finished his work early, he would offer to help others around him. Hendricks is the kind of student any teacher would love to have in their classroom. And his current teacher, Mrs. Garcia, says Hendricks has many awesome qualities and skills. He is prepared for learning in our classroom every day. Participation is also one of his strong points. He is a ready reader and likes to participate in math discussions. Hendricks' fluency, reading, and comprehension are already above expectations. He is respectful to other classmates and does a great job knowing the classroom and school-wide expectations. He also advocates for himself and others when needed. Hendricks knows how to keep his cool in tough situations, and he's great at offering solutions. So after reading that, would you like a job at the elementary school? Our K second grade student of the month, Hendricks Deanna. One more. Okay, and our third through fifth grade student is Nyssa de la Cruz Riojas. Come on up, Nyssa. Okay, Nyssa is a fifth grader in our dual language program. So Mr. Morrison The Spanish psych teacher says that Nyssa has made great improvements in my class during this school year. She is shown to be more energetic in learning and more actively involved in class participation. Her grades are improving daily and also her confidence in her own abilities. And Mrs. Bunker says Nyssa has done an outstanding job this year. She has worked beyond expectations in order to step up to the rigor that is 5th grade. I am so proud of her organization and efforts toward being successful this year. She's truly earned this honor. Congratulations, Nyssa.
She's in the right place. Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Thank you.
Is Mr. Cleaver here? Go ahead.
Middle school student of the month is Miriam Hernandez Lopez. Miriam is a 6th grader at the middle school. Mrs. Cuevas had this to say about her, that Miriam's a hard worker. In and out of the classroom, she demonstrates kindness, a willingness to learn, and an ability to rise above expectations. Without a doubt, we can expect great things in her future. Miriam es muy trabajadora dentro y fuera del salón de clases. Demuestra amabilidad, voluntad de aprender y la capacidad de superar las expectativas. Sin duda podemos esperar grandes cosas en el futuro de Miriam. Mr. Boyer said that Miriam is a silent wonder. As I observe her in class, she's always on task and she doesn't really speak unless spoken to. She has a great skill in art and she follows her brother and sister in the pursuit of art. He really enjoys having her in class and looks forward to the art she will create next. You can view some of her artwork just outside the art room. And way to go, Miriam. Mrs. Greenwood said that you're an excellent PE student who works hard and has adapted well to middle school PE, and you always set a great example for others. Our student. Oh, you already did. Okay.
Thank you. And high school?
Alrighty, we get to do the step member and the student. I'll do the student first. Alright, this student is a senior at Nyssa High School with a 3.94 GPA and is ranked 8th in his class. He is kind, helpful, friendly, and makes our school a better place. So it's an honor to recognize Osvaldo Baena as our Student of the Month recipient. Come on. Here, and I'm going to share a few things that your teacher said about you. Okay? But first I'm going to say this part. Este estudiante es un estudiante de último año en Nyssa High School con un 3.94 GPA y es número 8 en su clase. Es amable, servicial, amigable y hace de nuestra escuela un lugar mejor. Así que es un honor reconocer a Osvaldo Baena como nuestro estudiante del mes. And Mr. McDonald, who's here, see if I can read this as well as he does. Osvaldo has been a great help in our front office as a TA. He stayed during parent-teacher conference to help pass out paperwork and to be of assistance in any way possible. I think that tells you what you need to know about Osvaldo. His perfect attendance and high grades are sometimes overlooked because of his quiet nature. For any organization to be successful, they need a lot of people like Osvaldo. I have no doubt that he will continue that success in any area he chooses. He is a very deserving recipient of this award. And you're guilty of all those things. It's true, absolutely. And then I'll read, let's see, what Mrs. Vargas said. Osvaldo so deserves the honor of being November Student of the Month student. He was in my English 11th class last year, and he was so quiet that when I first read his work, I was shocked at how insightful and well-written his writing is. All year I looked forward to reading his assignments, and I appreciate that he always wanted to know what he could do to improve, even when he already earned an A. I have also worked with Osvaldo in student council this year. He did not run for office, but he is always one of the first students with great ideas and an offer to help. We all appreciate how giving and kind he is. Whether he continues to work behind the scenes or chooses to be recognized as the leader he is, I know Osvaldo has a bright future ahead of him, and I can't wait to hear about all that he accomplishes. In the meantime, congratulations on this much-deserved honor, Osvaldo. That's from Mrs. Vargas. So, congratulations. English and Spanish for Mom. I didn't read it all because her Spanish is much better than mine. Okay. And then we have the staff member. Mr. McDonald, want to join me in congratulating this person? It was a team effort. You want to read your part? No. Okay. Let's see. So, this is a teacher I worked with for 4 years, and I'm just so glad that she's part of our school. It's been a long time now. So, most of you know Anna and her reputation. So it was hard to summarize all of that, but this is what I wrote. Anna has excellent rapport with students, is caring and kind, and plans engaging lessons that reflect real life applications. She is organized, detail-oriented, and an excellent communicator. Anna has gone above and beyond the standard curriculum to implement 2 school-based businesses and provide opportunities for her students to learn and network with business professionals. Anna understands the importance of making her lessons meaningful and relevant to her students and to individualize her approach to their interests and needs. We have at times intentionally placed very difficult, and struggling students with Anna, knowing she will build a connection and help them find success. This school year, Anna, on her own time, has sought out additional professional development opportunities and is having fun trying new strategies and approaches with her students. Anna has been a refreshing positive influence on our school and students. So it is an honor to recognize her as the Nyssa High School staff member of the month. And then, you want to read your part? Okay.
I've been very impressed this year and seen the efforts of Ms. Long in trying to connect with students and give them meaningful life experiences. She spent the first few days of school teaching the kids all kinds of teamwork, behaviors, and outcomes that she expected throughout the year. She's gone out of her way to try and help with difficult students who are struggling. She seems to be a safe place for some of our most difficult students who speak so highly of her. That in and of itself is a tremendous accomplishment and credit to her nature. She continually strives to learn and grow as a professional. I commend her for that. It seems she is always researching some new ideas and sharing those with me, which has helped me grow professionally. She's always been a great communicator on top of the requests we give to her. She seems to usually be the first one to have read an email and respond to something that we've asked of our staff. She's taken the lead in her PLC group and is working hard to make it the best group possible. She truly is a pro's pro.
Okay, those of you who got an award, if you'd like to step out in the hall so she can take your pictures for the school paper, that would be great. Next, our visiting patrons, Mrs. Schuster, would you like to come up?
As you brought this up, because I really hope you guys will respond to my page thing. Sorry. So, I have a few issues that I would like to address, and I'm not really sure if you guys are aware of them, but I would love for us response from you all or guaranteed follow-up by next meeting or if you want to reach out to me. One is your bullying policy. Do you guys agree that bullying should not be allowed at any level at any grade? Do you think that administration across all schools should look the same? Do you think that there should be a point where if there's an IEP involved, there's actually a consequence if it isn't a manifestation of their abilities? And if it is a part of their IEP, how would you expect the school to protect the other children in the classroom? I went to a bullying meeting. Personally, I felt like it was not relevant to what I know is going on in the elementary school at present. I've moved my son already from the classroom because dealing with a child is a constant issue. To the point a teacher quit last year because of it. How is that okay? She was an amazing teacher who truly loved her job. He was a constant distraction issue for now 3 years. Cal was on Zoom with him for 3rd grade, so I was able to observe. He has threatened children with knives and got away with it last year, so continued it into this year, but he's still allowed at school. At what point is there going to be documented proof that he is a threat? To what point do all the other students need to be scared? Even if he is at the school, separated from the children, they still see him. How is that protecting him? Children will live with the fear of a threat for a lifetime if they feel they aren't protected. Does the school need a lawsuit or a school shooting to take this seriously? Our children are what is most important to all parents, period. I know teachers go into teaching to help children. Putting teachers in a position to feel they can't do their jobs isn't allowing them to do what they got into teaching for. I care about the teachers as well. If the school is supposed to be mandatory reporters, why is a child allowed to be threatened and nothing done to the threat? Would you as a parent want to know that the school will do everything in their power to protect your child? If I'm at a point that I feel the only way to keep my son safe next year is to keep him home, if bullying has been allowed with this child and he is allowed to stay in our schools, next year he'll be changing classes. How are the kids going to be safe? New subject, what do you as a board feel about the CDC saying they're going to make the COVID shot part of the required vaccine? Is our school going to enforce that policy or continue to allow parents to decide if their children get it, much like the flu vaccine? Also, what about children in the high school carrying around stuffed animals? How do you know this is safe? We already have a vaping marijuana issue and there are schools with weapon problems. Tell me how my child is supposed to feel safe with unknown things at school. What is hidden in that pillow, walrus, or stuffed sandwich? Plus, kids should be able to make it through the day without stuffed animals or pillows at school. My daughter can't wear a beanie, but they can take stuffed animals and pillows. Our elementary kids are expected to not take stuffed animals to school. Do we feel that kids are at school to learn or to be coddled? And then I would also like to address the transgender bathroom in the locker room. I get that society wants to make this normal. However, it poses a huge risk to our daughters that are put in the situation of changing in front of a biological male or having to go into a gender-neutral changing room to make one person feel normal. Please tell me why we as parents need to teach our children that they need to deal with this potentially dangerous situation. There have been documented situations where girls have been raped because of allowing transgender into the girls' locker room. Personally, I would never feel this is a safe situation for my daughter or anyone else's daughter. How do you feel as a board? Is it just because we live in Oregon that we're doing this, or are you all okay with the possibility of a dangerous permanent situation happening to our community's daughters? There has to be another solution that would protect all the children, not just the minority in the situation. What specifically does the school board policy or the school policy say about this situation? As always, I'm 100% for our children. I want them to all feel safe at school. But I want to know to what point do we need to pull our kids out because that's the only way as a parent we can protect them.
Okay, it seems to me that there were 4 different issues that we needed to talk about. The first one was about bullying. Have you gone through the channels with the vice principal?
I am speaking on behalf of someone who's not able to come, and the fact that my son was in a classroom where he observed a lot of things. So,
Mr. Murray, can you speak with that? The bullying situation at the elementary school and how things have been dealt with?
Sure. We've gone through a policy that included, basically followed the school policy, school district policies in regard to suspension and expulsion with that student. So we processed with that committee was convened to address that situation, and steps were taken following the recommendations to that committee. And those are the steps that we've implemented at the elementary school. We feel that the situation is safe for the students who are there now, and that the issues that were brought up just now.
What happens if it happens again with the same student?
Well, it would depend on the situation and what the incident was.
Because, I mean, I was reading our policies on bullying earlier this week, and they're very vague. And I don't know if that's something that, I mean, it's an ongoing issue. Is that something that we need to address as our own policies? And I don't know. It just seems to be a continuing thing. Even we have these classes, we have these assemblies or whatever about bullying, which is fantastic, but it's still happening.
Is this perhaps something we need to take into an executive session so that we can discuss more
Review our
personally?
policies.
Well, not just our policy, but discuss the situation a little more.
In details, but with still privacy.
Yes.
I think that would be excellent, because it is something that needs to be addressed. I really appreciate Mrs. Schuster for bringing this to our attention, because I do think this is something that should be addressed. So, and I don't know, are we gonna go through each of the items?
Yes,
Okay.
I thought we should. Next, she said something about the CDC requiring the vaccination. We will follow the law, just like we did with masking. When they told us we had to wear masks, we wore masks. If they tell, I have not heard anything about that, but if they tell us we have to be vaccinated, we have no choice. Yes, Ms. Schuster?
But there are exceptions to.
There's
Well,
exceptions if you address your board and your board does not require it, that's where the exceptions fall in, and that's why I was bringing it to your attention, because it's not a mandated law. It's just that they said that's their recommendation, so I'm asking, would you guys be behind it, or would you guys?
If it's just a recommendation
If it's
from the
just a
state,
recommendation.
Or it's a board decision
A
rather
board
than a
decision.
state.
I can tell you where I stand on it, but probably we
Well,
would
they
discuss
gave
it
us-
as a board first.
They gave us the option to decide about masks and then took it away a week later, so. You know.
I think as long as there's a choice, generally the most consensus of the board is that we will allow for parents to have that choice, as long as we're able to give that ability.
But when the
Let us
state
remember
tells
that
us-
it is a decision of 7 individuals here,
Yes.
speaking as a board.
That's why I said, I can
Yes,
tell you my
your
personal
personal.
opinion, but we would make a board decision on that.
Next, to the high school carrying stuffed animals, I'm not sure, our high school staff
you-
want to address that?
I can nurse it. Honestly, I didn't think anything of it before. She has some valid points, and so it's something that we need to take back as a building admin team and a district admin team, and look at our policy and just, give that some reflection. Yeah, we have, there's a couple of students who routinely carry a stuffed animal, and last year it was a boy that carried a loaf of bread. And no, I have not considered that, but in light of the concern, we can give us some thought and discussion. So we'll start with our building admin team, it's just myself, the assistant principal, and our counselor, and
I
our
think
graduation specialist.
we can
and
consult policy on that, and in the absence of policy, handbook, student handbook, so.
And the last, the transgender bathroom in the locker room, I'll let you address that, Dr. Johnson.
Well, I don't think there is a transgender bathroom in the locker room. I don't know where that is coming from, but we are, we certainly do expect at some point that is something that will be presented to us of what are we going to do if that. So currently Oregon, and this is really different than the state of Idaho. The state of Idaho does not allow transgenders to participate in sports opposite their gender. The state of Oregon has taken the opposite, where they do allow that. In fact, you can change, a student can change within the same school year. You can't change sports season, but you can change male to female sports during the school year. When a sports season changes, you can a person can compete in different gendered sports through they can.
So they could play football in the fall, play girls basketball, and then
In the fall, in the
go down
winter.
with the girls.
That's the state of Oregon's stance at this point. And so will that come to us as far as a locker room issue? Currently, we've spoken about it quite a bit, quite at length at our ad council. From a sporting perspective, I think, Luke, at the middle school, we feel like there are alternatives to allow people privacy. We have spoken at length with Jesse on getting some privacy stations constructed in the high school locker rooms, and we're in process of that. Unfortunately, we are living through a very strange time in getting services, and I think Bryce Parker, who will speak to us later, as far as getting materials for construction and things, he can verify that. But Jesse, I don't know if you have any updates you want to give about that.
Sure, I did visit, and it's not as simple as just disconnecting the water line. We are gonna need to bring an engineer in here to go through and take a look at possibly getting some drawings for us. It's not as simple as just putting a curtain in.
So the plan is, in the high school and middle school boys and girls locker rooms, there are showers, right? And if you've been in there, you know that do they go floor to ceiling?
Yeah,
Or do they
from the ceiling to the floor.
ceiling to the floor? And so that is going to be remodeled to create some changing stations where people can go. And if that does, I think Mrs. Schuster, your concern about danger to children who are uncomfortable with that situation, we will have to just, this is a hard one too, because adults will just have to be placed in there at some point. Adults get accused of being in a weird situation too, but there does need to be some monitoring and for the safety of all kids. Yes?
Is there not the option to just have I mean, honestly, if you could switch what gender you are depending on what season you want to be in, I mean, it makes no sense to me. That is putting children at risk.
The ideal would be for us to have individual restrooms that you can lock yourself in, right? I mean,
But
to
if
have
someone
some
walked
privacy.
out and a bunch of girls are in the midst of changing,
Correct.
I mean, if we raise our children to be modest and we raise our children that we shouldn't see their naked bodies, which when I was in high school, we did our best to hide and all that, but it's an uncomfortable age anyway. So it's still putting them at risk. So they're still getting an eyeful and there can't always be monitoring.
That's why we're creating the changing stations in the locker rooms. So those are good. And we can talk more at length if we want a better response or a more
But we
thorough.
do have to follow the law. The law says they have to have their own private
And we are making
strides towards
towards changes.
Creating some privacy.
So, and you have to, it takes time and it takes money and engineering in certain situations. So we are working on the situation.
So does that mean that transgender is allowed in with the girls volleyball team? Until that gets done. Is that how it works this year?
Yes, please.
So we do have a process in place when a student shares with a counselor, with myself, that they identify with a different than their DNA. I don't know how to say it, sorry. Then we do have a process where it's usually our counselor has a very private conversation about, okay, we want everybody in our school to feel comfortable. How are we going to do restroom and locker room? And able to identify a type of plan that allows all students to feel comfortable. Usually that means that they change in a private location, whether that's in a coach's office or our bathroom there in the office, so that they're separate. And so there's an individual plan, and so far that's allowed us to navigate it so that so we don't have a mixing. I think, like it's been said, I think eventually there's going to have to be separate restroom closets or changing areas, and so each person goes into a closet, shuts the door, changes, and then it's more of a universal Western area. So do know that your concerns are shared, and that we're both, with the limitations of our facilities, we're doing the planning to work around that. So it's hard to please everyone and make everyone feel welcome, and that's something we take very seriously. So that's
Okay, so while we do that, we will go into executive session and discuss the bullying. With the vaccination being required, we'll follow the state laws. You'll look into the stuffed animal policy.
Yeah, we'll have the discussion after the admin team.
And the transgender bathrooms, we were working on that. Okay, so let's move on. Mrs. Vargas?
Good evening. So I'm here to talk a little bit about staff wellness, which is a concern of mine. Obviously worried about some of the people I work with, and knowing that there are a lot of people working in the school district that, it's a really stressful time, they're dealing with a lot, and I would really like to see us reach out and have more of a staff wellness policy and program. And so I did share some research with you that I've been looking at, and it shows that this is not just in our district, that school staff are struggling everywhere, a lot of stress. COVID really is the marker of when that increased, but even before then, staff wellness was a concern in school districts. So COVID just made it worse, and post-COVID, all the challenges we're facing have made that worse. And I wanted to bring this to the board because it's not really something to take to admin, because I shared one article with you that it's not just staff, teachers, it's administration as well. And so really I'm hoping for some kind of program that looks at taking care of the entire district, right, working together for that. And initially this really came to mind because last year, and some people know this, I considered quitting the district, moving on, going somewhere else. I was really overwhelmed, having a really hard time. And I was able to reflect a little bit and realize that, some of it was challenges within the district, but a lot of it was stuff that I was dealing with. And, I had lost my mom during COVID. That was very stressful. I hadn't dealt with the grief of that. Just all the COVID stuff that happened, other family stresses. And so I know there are a lot of people who are dealing with that as well. It's not just work, it's other things. But sometimes when you are so overwhelmed with stress, you don't realize the full picture, right? I hate my job. I need to leave. I need something different. And you're not really reflecting rationally on what's going on. And luckily, I stayed, right? And I was able to reflect and realize, okay, there was some other stuff going on. I have to work through it. I had Mr. Jackman's support. He understood I was having a hard time and, gave me some options and I needed them. And I really appreciated that. So I want to make sure we all have that we all have the support of everyone else in the district and we're working together to take care of each other. And one of the reasons that I shared in the research is that this, maybe you could think, oh, we all should take care of ourselves, but it has such an impact on our kids. Even if I'm stressed out, I don't realize it, I go into a classroom or I meet with a student, I might accidentally take that out on them, right? So if you have overstressed staff, then it's impacting students. Students don't feel as included, as welcome, and I don't want that for our kids. I want to make sure they're all getting the best of us. So, looking at that, I shared some research on solutions. I don't have an answer, right? I'm not coming here saying this is what we should do. I'd really just like the board to get something started, look at maybe, okay, whether it needs to be a committee or maybe we could get a consultant, somebody who can help guide us, or a group that can help guide us towards some kind of solution where we're looking out for each other, we're finding out how do we take care of each other within the district, and it's not Dr. Johnson, having to do it all, because I'm pretty sure his job might be stressful too. So how do we make sure all of us are taken care of? So I'm happy to help. I'm happy to be part of this and work with you, work with anyone else on this. I just really like to see us make it a priority. I know Mr. Jackman sent out a survey today from MODA that could be helpful. I took it. I thought maybe some more questions would be helpful and personalized, but it was a good start. And so, again, I'm here. I'm happy to help on any of this, and I'm sure we'll have some other people in the district as well. But board help would be very much appreciated. So,
Thank you.
that's it. Okay, thank you. Any questions or?
Looking forward to reading the material.
Okay. I know it's a lot.
No, thank
I
you.
like research, so.
Thanks for bringing it to us.
Okay, thank you.
At the OSBA convention that we just concluded, I did have the opportunity to meet with the psychiatrist for the eastern area of the, who goes to the health departments. And nice gentleman. He is also a school board member. And I will attempt to make contact with him to see if he can give us some directions that we might look. I recognize that this is a huge problem. And I shouldn't say a problem, it's a challenge to us. All of us are facing it, board members, staff, students, you know, our entire community. This has been a stressful time. So, but I will, you know, try to make contact with him and see if we can get some guidance.
Okay, student body report, Ms. Sapp.
Hi, thanks for having me again. For those that don't know me, I'm Lauren Sapp, and I'm the ASB president at the high school. This month, I want to report on several different events going on at the high school, including fundraisers, and give a summary of our fall sports seasons, and update you on some student questions that you guys wanted me to ask. And so to start our volleyball season, we ended with a league record of 6 wins and 4 losses. We traveled to Medford for our first round of the state playoffs, and we played Cascade Christian, and they beat us. Burns, who won our district, got second in state, and they lost to Valley Catholic. Football ended their season with a record of 1 win and 3 losses. They did not make it to state. Girls ended their season with a record, girls soccer, my bad, ended their season with a record of 5 wins, 5 losses, and 2 ties. They didn't make it to state. Boys soccer ended their season with a record of 6 wins, 3 losses, and 1 tie, and they didn't make it to state either. For some of our school events, we had our first pep assembly on October 19th. Many students said that it was one of the best they've ever been to. The pep club also had a spirit week that tied into bullying prevention week. And then student council had a fall festival, like a costume party, on October 29th. It didn't have a very good turnout, but it was our first one that we have tried to put on, so we're no better for next year. And then our attendance percentages for quarter 1 are 9th grade is at 92%, which is up by 0.89% compared to this time last year. And then 10th grade is at 92%, which is at 2% up from last year. And then 11th grade is at also 92%, which is 3% up from last year. And then 12th grade is also 92%, which is also 2% up from last year, which is pretty good. The last board meeting, I presented you guys a question of what would you like me to report next time, and your response was to find out things from my fellow classmates, something they would like to ask you guys. Our number 1 question was, when will we stop having school on Fridays? And then they would also like to see you guys at extracurricular activities and know who you guys are. So they would like to see some of you guys at like assemblies maybe or sporting events. They also want to know what you guys really do for us. And then they want to know how often the water filters are changed. And my goal was to keep this as candid as the responses were. I would love to report back to your classmates your responses. I've also printed off schedules for you guys for the winter seasons. The wrestling schedule hasn't been out yet, so I just have boys and girls basketball. And then lastly, I would like to tell you guys the fundraisers we have. So boys basketball is doing a fundraiser. It's available till 11/17. I'm not really sure what it is. Do you know?
There's a link.
There's a link that you can click on. I don't know if you have the same paper I have.
There we go. What is it?
They're selling shirts, hats,
Okay.
hoodies, all that kind of stuff.
And then HOSA is doing brownies, which they're being sold at room 14. And then they have a fall basket raffle, so you can buy a raffle ticket, and they're available in the office or from host a member. And then they're also doing No Shave November, which is a 50-50 raffle for who can grow the most facial hair. $20 tickets available at the front office. Help them support and bring awareness to cancer warriors and survivors. And then Yearbook is selling caramel apples for $6. Come and get yours before they're gone. Senior class is raffling a really big bulldog blanket. It's really cool. The raffle tickets are available in the front office for $5. And then the senior class is also raffling off a big screen TV during a winter sports game. We don't know which one yet, but. And then students have purchased a parking spot, and it's been really cool to see all the ones painted and creativity. And then also we're selling popcorn on Thursdays and Fridays until the end of the year. And then football is also still selling the black and blue shirts. They're for $15 in the front office, and then football has some hats available for $25 and some other gear that has a link as well.
Thank you very much.
Question. When do we know when assemblies happen?
I can.
Are they on a schedule, or does it just happen when people
we
decide to?
plan them. I can maybe send them to Megan and she can tell you guys.
Mr. Jackman knows how to send them out, and you can click on the board so that the board receives that too.
I wish we could do a better job.
You're doing a really good job.
Yeah.
Just click the board button.
Including our board members.
Did you have a question, Mr.?
Lauren.
Yes, I did. Lauren, when you're on fundraisers, do you know if you're going to be doing Blue and White Night this year?
Yeah, we are. It's on November 22nd. At what time? 7? Probably 6 or 7. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Good. And just for the record, Dr. Johnson's not going to be playing this year.
This is great, thank you.
Lauren.
Lauren, I did talk to Mr. Melendez about the water filters, and he will address that.
Are you talking about the drinking?
I didn't even know we had those.
That.
You said that
Crystal
knows how much I know.
And also
Empty cartridges.
concerts and all that kind of stuff. You guys just don't know.
You just
who we
don't know
are.
who we are.
So.
Well, thank you.
Thanks so much. Okay, next, Dr. Johnson.
That's hard to follow that. Lauren, you did a really good job, Lauren.
Thank you.
It's really nice to have you here. Excuse me, I just want to go down the list on my superintendent's report. As you can see, I give updates on our enrollment. If you, school board members, it should be in there. It's a single sheet. So we have total in-person enrollment at all 3 schools at 1,179. So I do give updates from month to month, whether we're up or down, and I need to start getting the prior year comparison month. So I will start doing that. And then as you can see, our Nyssa virtual, the MyTech High, has 145 students so far. So that has been great. As you know, on the Title I-C, the migrant investigation, I know that's a point of interest, of course, in our community and around. We want our community to understand that we are cooperating fully with the Oregon Department of Education and all the requirements they're asking us to do for that, which does entail, there's been some calling to make sure people who were part of that program are supposed to be part of the program, not, qualified under wrong circumstances. So some of our families, and during that investigation, it was determined that they were not supposed to be qualified. So there will likely be some repayment of money for over identifying students. We still do not know how much that will be. We will also have, we're going to begin recruiting soon, although our people will not be able to do that. They're going to be, we're required to hire someone from outside of our district to start doing that, to make sure the things will be done correctly.
For how long?
This school year, but I don't know, likely this school year, so, while our staff gets trained. Any questions on anything so far? The next item there is the update on our high school remodel project. I've invited Bryce Parker, our construction manager from Benetton, to come and update you all regarding that project.
I'll let you.
Thank you, Chris.
Good evening, everybody. So it's been a while since I've stood before you. In last spring or maybe early this summer, I can't remember. But week before last, we got bids on all the packages for the project. Jesse's been great coordinating access. We had a really good pre-bid meeting, which in the last couple of years that has not been happening. We've been scratching and clawing to get anybody to show up, and we were a little bit concerned, especially being out in Nyssa, how many people we could attract. And we had over 20 guys there that day. It was awesome, and we got good bid coverage. We had multiple abatement bidders. We did only have one rough carpentry bidder. We had 4 roofing bidders. We had multiple drywall bidders, and just one plumbing bid. And we're going to continue to work on that. But right now, we at least have coverage, but he came in really high. Our HVAC, we had 4 bidders, and that came in really well. Electrical, we had multiple bidders as well, and that came in really well. So all told, in the gray column, you can kind of see where our last estimate this summer was based on the schematic design. And then once we got final design, we put those packages out on the street to get our hard bids. So things came in well. All things considered with the markets that we're dealing with. We've been working with Jesse and Dr. Johnson on some of the scope. One of the huge issues right now is the lead times. I think you started to allude to that on some of the other materials for some of the other stuff Jesse's trying to do. HVAC equipment, in particular, the units that were specified for this project, when we bid the job, we're out 40 weeks following approval. So once we get a contract let, we get subcontracts out, we'll get product data to the engineer, they'll review it, make sure everything's good, and then you set the order loose. Then you wait 40 weeks until you see on the job site, which would not have accommodated a project this summer. So we worked with the HVAC bidder, the low apparent bidder. He came up with a option for us to go to train equipment, which costs a little more, but it still fit well within the budget. And we can get the smaller units in 23 weeks and the larger units in 27. So they would show up in July. We can have everything else kind of ready to accept them at that point. The 32 out of the 34 units are the smaller units, and we've got 2 larger units over kind of the media center admin area.
And
So
that
it'll just
will
be
be
the 2
adequate.
that'll be a little later. Sorry?
That will be adequate to use those smaller units and such. And that-
Oh yeah, that's how it's designed. Yeah, that's how the engineer has it designed. But fortunately, the majority of the units we need will come several weeks earlier than the 2 larger ones. So that's good. That's a good thing. So wanted you guys to have an opportunity to review this. The construction total, about a little bit more than halfway down, is what we'll do a contract amendment for that amount. There is some contingency in that number, that $160,000, that will be on the table for if we run into anything on the project at the end of the day. If that doesn't get spent, we'll go back to the school district. The construction soft costs and the design fees below are just the permit fee has been paid. Dr. Johnson got that paid, so that $21,060 is a real number. And that those permit drawings and that permit is in hand now. The rest of those are some allowances just for some miscellaneous expenses through the project. So we saved quite a bit of money there on that permit, almost $30,000.
Yes.
And then the design fees are fixed at the bottom. That's the architect. We just like for you guys to kind of be able to see the full picture of what the project's cost. But as far as our contract goes, the $4,122,000 will be our contract amendment. So, open up any questions you guys may have. But in the last couple of years, it has not been a common thing to come in under budget. So it was, our estimator was feeling pretty good about it. We all were. So it's nice to be able to report good news. Getting really tired of reporting bad news. This is different. It's a little lower. I think you attended the last meeting we had in person with them, and it was at 4.6, 4.5. Yeah, right here you can kind of see the construction total was 4,180, and then the total was 4,455. So yeah, this is good news. So thank you.
And how much estimate did you know?
Well, what? Go ahead, Crystal.
$2,904,565 and no
About
pennies.
1.5 million short.
We are 1.2 million short. which is way better than it was in August, or the last time you presented, remember?
Yeah, but it's not nearly as good as it was when we first started talking about it.
Hell no, but that was 11 years ago. Like, it is what it is.
And refresh my memory, but when we originally started talking about this, I thought it was around $2.5 million.
I think there was a budget established at that point, and I mean, on a napkin, we kind of tried to look at what the scope would be. So once we actually got the schematic design, which was the estimate we put together from the architect, that's when we got the new numbers. And I mean, in the last, I think when we were doing that initial, Dion was still with Design West when we did that initial budget, and he's been gone over a year.
You like Dion better than.
Yeah. Well, he didn't have anything to do with the market changing, but just my frame of reference for timing, so, yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, we're still dealing with it in a crazy market. So, the fact that we did get good bid coverage is very encouraging.
Just to let the board and all of you know, at the OSBA meeting, I talked to 3 other schools who are facing the same problems that we're having with the HVAC and, going through to replace and running into the same problems that caused overruns.
One of the other things we found out in the meantime was we got the asbestos surveys done. So all the joint compound and the drywall we have to demo is hot, it's asbestos. And then the roofing, there's 2 different sources of asbestos in the roofing, so that drove costs as well. So.
Thank you for your work.
Absolutely.
And I do think, so Jesse, while you're here, we spoke with Bryce earlier about this. So we're talking about the train units instead of carrier. Currently, we have carrier around the district. Is that right? And,
Yeah, we do.
And how
Majority
much?
of it is carrier.
That's just a brand.
Correct.
Brand name.
Same units with a brand.
So you're talking about different controls, different. I mean, the wiring is the wiring, right? But as far as the controls, and I don't know how. That
Well,
works.
as far as HVAC goes, it's just what you would compare to a Chevy or a Ford.
They're still based on the same performance specs, all the same energy efficiency, the same
Trains and
capacity of units. The whole nine
It's
yards.
not, if we get maintenance, it's different companies come out to maintain the different
No,
units, or
not
same
necessarily. You're still gonna run the same 3-phase motor, same
company? Okay.
fan belts.
Now, at first, we weren't sure we were going to be able to find that option. There's the only other option that has a quicker ship. They don't have any hinged access panels, so anytime you go out there to replace filters or belts or whatever it may be, you're unscrewing 14 screws and pulling the panels off. And long term, that's not a good situation. So it was nice to find an option out there that we could take and actually get the job done this summer.
Thank you. Next item on my superintendent's report is the OSBA conference. Susie Ramos, Pat Warnock, and I attended, and I wanted to have Pat and Susie give just a brief, very brief thoughts about it. Or maybe not so brief. It's your meeting. Right?
This OSBA meeting was the first one in 2 years or 3 years. It was very good. I asked what the attendance was. They said there were 500 people registered originally, but they were looking at potentially 600 who attended. All the sessions were very full. When I went there and after I'd looked at everything that was offered, I decided I would try to focus on 3 items. One was equity, because we've got to make some progress on that. The other is student voice and family engagement. And I sort of lumped those 2 together. And the third one was governance, in that Eastern Oregon is not very well represented on that side of the state with OSBA, and that really concerns me, because we are a huge area and we have needs and we have wants that are different than what you find in the valley. So anyway, that was what I had originally done. I went to 4 different keynote sessions. The first was Equity in Action, the board's role in fostering student success. It was very good. It was presented by Kamal Carter of the Long Talk. And one of the basic things that came out of that was, you cannot move what you cannot see. That's a James Baldwin quote. And if none of you know James Baldwin, that's because he's from a generation back when I was having to read literature. The second session was empowering students today to succeed in an unpredictable tomorrow. And that was done by Ravi Singh, who is the nephew or grandnephew of Indira Gandhi, related to Gandhi. He was also the guitarist for Hanson, which is a rock group back in the 70s. But, very interesting. And one of the things he said was that the world is changing. He made a change from being a guitarist to becoming or from being a musician to becoming a teacher to becoming a public speaker. So that was very interesting. I think we all enjoyed that. The third session was by Brandon Fleming, Undoing Miseducation. Being transformed, the transformative power of educational equity. Again, another equity piece. And basically what came out of that was put humanity before education, because you have to have empathy to truly educate. The last session was very good, would have been very good for all of us school board members. It's today's significant school board members surviving and thriving. And it was done by a principal out of New York, principal in a high school. And the one thing that came out of that was his ABC, which is very, I think, significant to all of us. It's always be communicating. And that's something we all really need to do. As we came out, after I came out of all of this, I learned a lot about equity, and we need to be working, and we will be working on that. Student voice, I attended several sessions on student voice, and that is why I asked Lauren if I would like to attend a student council meeting to introduce myself and to hear what the students have to say. And I would like to also know what the students in the middle school have to tell us. So, just to get out there. As far as governance, I am a member of the Color Caucus and decided to run for the position of an at-large representative representing our area to the Color Caucus. And you might ask what the Color Caucus is. The Color Caucus is a group of board members of color who want students to be considered all students, but to pay particular attention to some of the things that affect students of color. And I said, our school district is 70 to 80, probably a little larger, percent Hispanic. Our needs here are different than the needs in Woodburn, and they are 85% Hispanic, or the needs in Hillsborough, or the needs in other places. And so I decided to do this. This is kind of a big step for me. I don't like this type of thing. The other thing is, for our information, that OSBA is sponsoring a rural schools sort of initiative, and they're hoping to make that also into a caucus. The value of a caucus is that there'll be a representative from that group who will actually be a member of the OSBA board, which would be helpful to us to again have some voice. Anyway, Susie?
I'll keep mine short and sweet.
Yeah, I talked too much.
There were lots of fun little classes, and it was really neat to sit at a table and talk with a school board member in another small district in Oregon, because I think I have 187, 160 or small or something like that, like our size. And I went to all these classes, like how to control a disruptive meeting and stuff like that. And they were okay. But they had some really good motivational speakers every morning. And one of them just really touched myself, and I think Darren, a young man from Atlanta, Georgia, grew up not white, in a very poor district, and went from selling drugs, his dad was in jail, to, the whole story, which a lot of our kids can relate to. And one teacher made a difference in his life. And now he's like on Forbes top 10 list and really successful. But he said test scores don't matter. Sorry. None of this other stuff matters. He goes, loving your kids is what matters. And this one teacher made a difference in his life. And so Darren and I got his card, and hopefully we can get him to come speak to our staff and students in the fall, because he was amazing. I got his book. If anybody wants to borrow it when I'm done.
We're a little concerned about him being on the Forbes top 100,
Yes.
because I don't know if we can afford to have him come, but anyway.
But if we could do him out here counting one or something,
we'll try
and
to
get all the
figure it out.
schools to fit to, because he was amazing. I mean, I left in tears. He was so motivated. So it'd be something that, and if you guys get a chance to go to the convention next year, it was really nice, even though it was in scary downtown Portland.
Yeah, it was
Homeless on one side.
It was a great conference.
Yeah,
It's a
I didn't leave the
wonderful
hotel because it
opportunity
was
to-
scary.
Sorry, Susie. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, you're fine. Okay, go ahead, finish your.
Well, it was just great to be there with superintendents, school board members from all over. Actually, the school board member that Pat is referring to is the psychiatrist. He's on the Salem Kaiser School Board. We've read a lot about him in the newspaper, in the turmoil that exists across the state for whatever political issues are happening. He's very much a part of that and a good voice for children. And I like Susie, just to piggyback on what Mrs. Ramos said. This young man, Brandon Fleming from Atlanta, Georgia, said he hated school. He said the teachers hated him and he hated them. He didn't want to be there. He was raised on the street. Nothing about school was familiar to him until someone actually listened to his story. Someone cared enough to listen to his story. His test scores were horrible. How do you fix those test scores? We can look at his test scores, study his test scores, but until someone listened to his story, so the story is the agent of change, right? Yes, we do need to pay attention to test scores. That is very important to what we do as schools. But the way to make the change is to hear and listen to the story of individuals. And so he was very powerful, as were so many of the others. He in particular. Maybe I identified with him because he's a former basketball player. But the fact is, he had an injury, a career-ending injury, and focused his energy into some other way. And he went to Harvard. He ended up going to Harvard for a master's degree. And he said, I'm not saying there's not black people at Harvard, because there are, but just not black people like me, from the inner city, from drug-impacted homes, from gang. He knew all these gang members too. But what he did is he started doing debate. He loved English, and he started doing debate, and he said, we need to get kids from my hometown, from the inner city, to Harvard to compete in the international debate, the high school international debate. So he went back to Atlanta, started training kids, would spend a year training them, took them back, and it was an international competition. Kids from China, kids from all over the world there. And he said they won it like 4 years in a row. And just such a fantastic story about how one individual who can see a vision can change, just love people, hear their story, and take them to new heights. And so that was really a really awesome story. So,
may I add a couple of other things? Also, transportation. You think we have problems with transportation?
Yes, we do.
I was talking to one of the board members from Klamath, 6,100 square mile district, 93 buses running every day. They've got to have mechanics, which are hard to find, drivers, which are hard to find. So I sat down and had a discussion with him as to how they are attracting drivers. And then the last thing I would like to say is that the superintendent of the year for the state of Oregon actually hired our assistant superintendent out of Glenfield College. And Brian.
Yeah.
She told me something about you.
Oh, no.
She said,
This is recorded, by the way.
This is being recorded.
Yeah.
She said that Ryan was kind of a messy housekeeper.
Oh. I didn't know that.
It's funny. I appreciate that.
So
There's a lot of stories involved in that.
So, but no, and she told us about what a good teacher you were in the elementary school.
Spoke very highly.
Yes.
I hate her.
Sarah Johnson, Perk
Yes.
County School District.
Sarah Johnson.
Yes, I got a picture too.
Fantastic lady.
Okay, go ahead. Let's finish up.
So my last part on my superintendent's report is actually on the agenda. So we will get to the principals and Ray and Hawkins doing the state report cards. That's on 11B. So we will do that at that time. So I'm not unfinished with
All right, thank you. Crystal, can we have our financial report?
Yes.
Ramirez and Crystal Bordeaux. I'm the business manager. Nice to meet you. So every month I get up here and present the financials for the previous month. So tonight in your packets you have our district financials for the month of October. But before I get to that, I have a fun budget amendment that I need to ask our board for. I'm seeking approval to change our budget. This budget amendment is referring to House Bill 4030, which is the Education Staff Retention and Recruitment Grant that our district applied for, I should say Dr. Johnson applied for, and we received. However, I didn't budget this in our original budget that's already approved and adopted by the board, so now I have to ask permission for us to change our budget and then spend that money. There was a House Bill 4030 committee that was created on how to spend these funds. So this budget amendment that I'm presenting is based off of what that committee's recommendation is. The amount of the grant is $171,608.55. I'm asking that we create a new fund, Fund 243. And these funds have to be separated from our general fund dollars. That's why I'm asking to put them in a new fund. And they have to be spent by June 30th of 2023. So this request does require a motion and a vote. So I'm asking for your approval.
Someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, motion's carried.
Is this gonna be an ongoing grant, do you know?
This is a one-time thing.
So we'll just get rid of 243 after.
You'll see it in the budget for the next 3 years, as I have to
Okay.
report historically for 3 years.
Right.
So, little trees.
We hope.
Hopefully.
We decide that too.
Yeah, but for now, we just know it's just a one-time thing. Okay, so then in your packet, the very first page presented, these are our general fund numbers, and it's a summary. This is everything up to October 31st. If you flip to the second page, it breaks down everything that's been brought in and gone out, revenue versus expenditures through the month of October. The month of October, we did start to receive some taxes, so that means people are paying their county for property taxes. So we did get a payment. In October, our revenue for the month was a little over, I'll say $1,219,000. And then our expenditures that went right back out was $1,214. So we saved about $5,300. So that drops into our cumulative balance, and we carry that all along throughout the year until June, where our biggest funding source is our state school fund, and we do not receive a payment in June. So we want to carry a cumulative balance that is enough to pay for our very expensive month of June every year. So after the general fund numbers, I also provide our LGIP, which stands for our local government investment pool. We have two different accounts. This is where our money is stored. That's where our state school fund money goes into, and our property taxes. So this statement is for ending October 31st. It shows the balance, and then behind that is a report that I get from the county every year, every month, that breaks down the taxes that we received, prior year taxes being collected versus current year taxes. So everything ties together. After that, I make up a middle school bond operating statement so you can see where our bond balance is. We did receive some taxes in October, and so our bond balance ended the month at $86,215. We need another lump of money as we have a debt service payment coming up at the end of this month for $99,000. But a reminder, November is our biggest month of receiving taxes because that's when they're due. So I have no stress that we'll collect that money and get that paid. After that report summary is our LGIP statement for just middle school bond money. That's kept separate than all of our other money. And then again, a breakdown of the taxes we received from the county. I also create a operating statement for our Early Head Start program. That's Fund 230 in our budget. So the end of October, our ending fund balance is just a little over $41,000. We did fill a private pay spot that was open, so we're collecting revenue that way. And I haven't yet heard if we have any more families that have qualified for employment-related daycare. But hopefully, I heard. And Cindy, Mrs. Thompson did tell me that they are receiving a grant, and it should be coming soon. And I can't tell you for the life of me how much it was, but it is money, additional money coming in for that program. So. Then I always create an operating statement for our food service fund, which is Fund 299 in our budget. We ended October at a little over $68,000. And then I thought it'd be really cool. Mrs. Friel gave me count numbers of this year versus last year, so you can see how many meals and broke down breakfast, lunch, and snack that we served this year versus last year. So this year, just for the month of October, we served 12,008 breakfasts. However, last year we served 13,471, so we actually went down. And so I asked a question because we should just always be increasing, right? Not going down. And I was told that we kind of restructured some grades in elementary school of how we serve. So when I broke it down by building, that is where our counts are fluctuating. So unfortunately, that was a little drop in revenue of about $3,900. However, we did increase our lunch from 12,191 last year to 14,208. So that's an additional 2,000 lunches that we served. And we served an additional 2,685 snacks for the month of October compared to last year. We also were notified by the state that we received a second round of supply chain assistance funds. That amount was $26,888, and that is reflected in the federal revenue line of this operating statement. And that is just to help because we can't seem to get any products. Everything is shorted, and so we're having to pay more. Things are costing more because we can't get product.
They're using a lot of different vendors than they have in the past to try to get the food. So it's just interesting.
So that's very helpful, and maybe there'll be around 3 of that, hopefully. After that, I provide our payroll distribution report for the month of October. Breaks down how everyone's paid and what funds they were paid from. And then after that, I provide the approval of the bills report. That is absolutely every penny that has left the district bank account for the month of October. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Questions for Crystal? Okay, next we have the consent agenda. If you want to take a minute and look it over, and then we can make a motion to adopt it. Someone like to make a motion to adopt it?
I'll make the motion to adopt the consent agenda as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Okay, motion has carried. Okay, now we have some policy updates. This is going off that.
Now, I went through several of them. I didn't go through every single one down towards the end. I ran out of time. So, how did all of you feel about it?
So 1 through 24.
Basically, yes.
That was in the consent agenda, you guys just.
No, we just approved E. Okay, so we're at old business. The policy updates requested for further review.
One of those was the budget. One I believe that we wanted Crystal to look through. The budget committee one. And there were two versions there, Crystal. Which did you prefer, or should we just stick with what we have now?
Let's see, it should be in your packets, the notes that I wrote. I apologize, I looked at this about 3 weeks ago. Oh, thank you. But there's a couple things to note. There were some notes on the side of policy DBEA. On number 2, it says at least one member of the budget committee must be a member of the district's educational equity advisory committee. We do not have that yet, and I don't believe we have to have one until September or 2025. So I don't know if that doesn't apply right now to us. And then also there was a note on the second page, what does the board want, a 3-year term or a 4-year term? And I'd love to give you the option, but you don't get the option because I don't create biennium budgets. I do them annually. So if they're created annually, it's 3-year term for budget committee members. And then the other one, I don't know, I circled my recommendation. It just seems like a very simplified policy compared to the first one. I know I asked Megan to reach out to OSBA and ask their recommendation. They sent back words that were confusing, and almost to me it sounded like we should be adopting both of these. Is that how you read it, Megan? It's so confusing.
No, it made it sound like we just adopt one. She didn't really give any other clarification on that, but she did say one or the other.
Okay.
Well, said 1 and 2.
Probably the first one, right?
I mean, the first one, can we cross things out?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
We can cross it.
Because I would not recommend adopting this with number 2, because that doesn't apply to us at this time.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the first one seems fine.
Okay.
That's my crazy recommendation. I'm glad I don't look at a lot of policies.
No, but that's why we needed your help, because
Expertise.
you were much more familiar with the budget committee than we. So version 1.
Version 1.
Version 1.
It does not say version 1.
Yeah, I noticed that.
It is.
With her recommendations, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Did we have, on the student health services and requirements, did we have our nurse is an LPN, so we will still, this will still fill
It
for her
will.
position because she is.
She operates under the direction of a registered nurse's license through BSD. So we are in compliance with that policy.
This KBAR just goes along basically with the KBA that we just approved.
Do we want to adopt those with, adopt the first one on DBEA and adopt the other three? Do we need to make a motion?
You do, if we're gonna adopt them.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion to adopt those? Anyone can make a motion.
So moved, adopting version 1 of DBEA.
And the other three?
And
Yes.
With the changes that are suggested.
yes, with the changes.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, and the new business, we're on the SIA Student Investment Act.
So, Crystal, we submitted our Q4 report. That's all we have to report.
There should have been, reports in your packet
Yes.
of what was submitted.
It's right here. You see that?
And then, Dr. Johnson, are you gonna quickly go over it, or?
I did just want to let the board know, I had shared this in October, September, and I know Maribel, this is new to you, but the student investment account was created by the Oregon legislature as a new tax on businesses for a specific purpose for schools. And so with this new money, we've been required to have a lot of community engagement activities to make sure we're asking students, staff, parents, community, as many people as we can about how they want to spend this money. So that was initially, last year was year one. And so we're supposed to continue that. I have been around to visit with, we haven't asked as much as we have in the past. I mean, we're still asking people what they want to see the money spent on, but we're actually also informing people what we have chosen to spend the money on, because a lot of it has been invested in people, and that is ongoing unless this new budget is at some point ended by the legislature. Then those positions would be in, we'd have to figure out what to do with them. I guess I should say it that way. But I don't know if any of you have any questions about this, but we do have quite a few really nice additions to our staff. I know many of you have expressed the wellness about students coming back from the pandemic, how do we address the mental health needs. And, you know, Mrs. Schuster was here talking about the bullying, because, you know, we've seen some really interesting behaviors returning to full in-person school after not being in person for quite a long time. And so we have spent quite a bit of this SIA money in mental health. A district mental health coordinator, a counselor at the elementary, a continuing counselor at the high school. The middle school has never been interrupted. And so, anyway, that's just if there's any other questions. So
I would like to just mention that with Oregon's passage of having affordable health care for all Oregonians, that money has to come from someplace. And there is a possibility that the SIA money may be looked at, some of that for funding the required health care. And also the school funding may be looked at again to fund some of that. So that is just something we should be cognizant of.
How are you, do you mean the state school fund?
Mm-hmm.
And SIA? Okay.
Yeah, both of those, because those are huge.
lots of money.
Yes. So, and I don't want to, raise any red flags, but it's just something to be aware of. And the legislature does go back into session this year. So we'll see what happens.
Thank you. Okay, next is the state report cards. Mr. Hawkins, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Cooper, Mr. Murray.
Perfect. Thank you. So in your packet, you guys should have the state report cards for all the buildings, the district and the 3 buildings. So we're going to be referencing them for a little bit. And this is perfect. We were talking today about the miseducated speaker. His name was, what was it again? Brandon Fleming. And the thing about Brandon Fleming was, it's about the story that matters. Right? That was kind of the big take, is you need to get to know the kids and the why behind it. And that's kind of the theme of tonight when we go through these. We look at some of these stories in our lives and these pictures, and the impact is the story. Right? So have you guys seen this picture? Right? It's Muhammad Ali, right? and this is famous, and so part of it is we see this picture, but why is this such a great picture, right? Sonny Lester, right, David? Yeah. Right? So there's a couple kind of things around it saying the fight is fixed. There's all this, but this is actually a young Muhammad Ali really coming out. The second time he beat him, defending his title. But there's a lot of controversy around it. There's this. If you just look at this picture as it is, it looks pretty cool. But it's the story behind it, right? The story of greatness, and him looking down and just saying, like, get up. He was actually telling me, get up. Like, get up, you sucker. Let's do this, right? Right? Sucker was in it, right? And that was kind of a big part of it. And this is actually a really cool picture. Have you guys ever seen this picture? It's really hard to tell. You know what this picture is? This is the first ever recorded picture taken.
First photograph.
First photograph ever in France. Right? And the guy didn't actually get credit for it for another 100 years or something like that. Because he wouldn't tell the scientific community how he did it, and so they just, anyway, but that was the first picture ever taken. But if you took this picture a second ago, you're like, what is that, and why do I care? This is a shoddy picture. What is it? But then you know the story behind the picture. And that's a cool picture. Right? I mean, he did this thing where he took it through his window, a pinhole through his window, and kind of had all this stuff in it, but that's what makes that picture great. This picture we don't know, right? Mr. Hunter. That's Albert Einstein's picture, and the great part about that was his 87th birthday. And the third photographer trying to get him to laugh and that, and he stuck his tongue out. And there's more to this picture than just that, is the humanity around it. Right? It's saying he was more than just a scientist. Right? He was humorous, he was kind, he was thoughtful. He actually had a bunch of them made. He bought them from the photographer, had them made up and sent all over. But that's cool, right? And it's just not there. He's sitting in the car and that's just what he did. And that just lets you know a little bit about the man. This is actually, I love this picture. If you guys haven't seen this picture, this is great. This was a picture of the first ever successful heart transplant surgery. 24 hours straight. There's the doctor, right? That's, see if I can get this to work, of course. Where you at? It's not working. So there's the doctor. What was his name? Right? Sitting there after, in the corner there. See that corner? That's the nurse. She just found a corner and passed out exhausted. Right? And the patient on there is alive, by the way. How much more power does that picture have? Right? Now that you know the story, that's what makes it great. You can just take that. I mean, when we first saw it, like, is he dead? What's going on? Right? I mean, you take that off surface and you make up your own mind of what the story should be, but you don't really know. I love this one. Right? Sherman, as we know, right? The biggest follower is the Chicago Tribune. Sherman did win that election. Right? They came out with that and said, no, and that was kind of the big joke. They said, oh no, Dewey's going to win this one. They put it in the paper, and so he held that up, which was pretty cool. This one's Tiananmen Square. The story behind it is actually, it's more about humanity, right? A couple weeks earlier, in I think it was Turkey, same thing happened, but the tanks ran over the person. And the tank driver was actually reportedly told, like, go, just keep going. But he said, oh, I'm not going to do that, right? But also, the media was there. There's all these things behind it. But the power of one man protesting, stopping that's pretty cool. But you look at that on surface, you don't know the story. Most of us do know the story, hopefully. And it's like, okay, he's on the crosswalk, they should apologize for him. No, right? There's more to these things. Gandhi's picture, and again, referenced earlier with Gandhi, right? And this one, and so right there's the weaving wheel, I forget what it's called. That was a symbol of struggle in India. Like that was their thing against Great Britain and all of that. And then the picture of him in jail. Like, I mean, there's a lot to this picture. If people understand. Actually, the photographer wasn't allowed, I think a woman at the time wasn't allowed to put that in the picture until she learned how to use it. Right? And he said, no, you're not going to use this symbol of our struggle unless you know how to do it. And so, but that's why it's actually in the forefront of the picture. And so we want to kind of progress on is the story behind it is what matters. And so we have the report cards here and we see it at face value is we wanted to get to know the story. What does this mean for our kids in this and what does this mean for our community? Right? As your speaker talked about, it's the story that matters. And so the first part is the district report card as you see there. We're not going to go into the numbers and everything because what it is just a compilation of our buildings. And I'm going to let the buildings go through their part and kind of show the story behind it and what it means and where we're going. So I'd like to start off with Mr. Murray to go over his report card and tell you the story behind the picture you see on in front of you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. I appreciate that because I do have a little bit of a story too behind some of this data as well. Like Luke and Brett, I think we're going to be focusing on the challenges that we see in the report card as well as the successes. So let me kind of move through here. This is the report card, the elementary report card. And so we want to talk about the challenges. What I see as the challenges on this report card are our English language arts scores, first of all, are at 30%, 14% below the state average. And our science scores, where only 14% of our fifth graders are at proficient. So what are we doing to address those challenges at the elementary school? So first let's talk a little bit about those. Yeah. Way too high tech for me, I didn't know it was coming. I got you. So here's some of the story behind this. Now, I think some of you were here a couple years ago when I shared this picture and some information in a presentation. But this is kindergarten readiness. And the reason why I use this slide is to represent kindergarten readiness is because it's a metaphor for me of kind of how kindergarten begins. You can think of that line there, that gray line on the bottom, as the first day of kindergarten, right? Day one, we're all starting out. Well, some kids start out the first day of school beyond the line, don't they? They not only are at the level where we'd like to see them, they not only come with all the skills, they come with even more. Other kids are right about on the line. They come with the skills that we're looking for, language arts and math, those basic fundamental skills. And other kids, increasingly back, have fewer and fewer of those skills on the first day of school. So they don't really all start out at the same place, do they? Now, we're not just talking about basic academic skills like letter sounds or number recognition. We're talking about much more fundamental skills in some cases. The ability to listen, the ability to follow instructions, and the ability to get along with the person sitting next to you on the carpet. Many of our students don't even have those fundamental skills. We can't really talk about the academics until we have these in place. Why is this relevant? Well, if we look at the 2019 kindergarten readiness scores, which was the last time the state required us to assess our entering kindergartners on these basic skills, you see, this is a 5-point scale, so it's kind of compressed, 0 to 5. But the state average is 3.8 on these basic skills. Nyssa students come in with an average of about 3.0, fully 20% below the state average. Again, on the ability to listen, to follow instructions, and to get along with our peers. Just be able to attend to the teacher basically and what's going on in the classroom. So again, not really an even playing field. Things don't start at the same point. So that's kind of the backstory. Now let's turn to what we're doing to address those challenges that we saw. The most important thing we're doing is our data boards process. 4 times a year we meet formally, all the teachers, we address all the students in the school and look at their scores in the critical areas of reading and math fluency. Based on the scores that those students have, we provide interventions for every one of them, prescripted to what they're lacking. So if they're lacking phonemic awareness, we provide a phonemic awareness intervention. If they're lacking in fluency, we provide a fluency intervention. If they're lacking in comprehension, and so on. And we track those interventions on a 6-week basis throughout the year. If they're working, we maintain them. If they're not working, we change them. Very simple. But a critical process because no student is not addressed by that process. Language Arts Wheel, we began this last year. This is an additional 60 minutes of instruction for our highest need students in language arts on a very fundamental 1-to-4 ratio, 1 instructor with 4 students, very fundamental skills of phonemic awareness, phonics, so on, letter sound recognition, that kind of thing. With the premise here being that if students are behind, we have students here and we have students here at grade level, how are we going to make up that gap if we don't provide these students down here with just more time? If we provide all the students with the same 90 minutes of language arts instruction every day, how are they ever going to catch up? This is how. Additional phonemic awareness, all of our teachers have been trained in something called the Hagerty method, which is just a real fundamental. It's kind of like a 10-minute intensive athletic routine, physical education routine every day for your entire body. Just really high intensity, 10 minutes for the entire class every day. It's a supplement to our core language arts curriculum. And then social skills. We saw how critical social skills are and how lacking our students are. So we are directly addressing social skills and those social needs that kindergartners and first graders have. So we've coupled with Kate Barker, who is the Oregon Principal of the Year, to directly teach social skills. The ability to listen, the ability to get along with people next to us, the ability to attend to the teacher and follow instruction. And finally, PLCs, and we're doing this program kindergarten through 12th grade. PLCs are professional learning communities that our teachers meet in every week. And during those times this year, our focus is really on the teachers themselves and bettering teacher performance. Collegial discussion among teachers. How do you do this? How do I do this? Let's compare how we're doing things to improve our practice, with the idea being that if we improve our practices in the classroom, the manner in which we are delivering instruction, the students will also improve. So that's what we're doing to address the challenges now. Just kind of quickly, what were the achievements here on this report card? The main achievement I see here is in mathematics. We've equaled the state average in mathematics. We didn't start where the state started. You saw that by that photograph. We started behind. But we caught up with the state. We equaled the state average. Obviously, we're not intent to be there. We want to exceed it. And we want to do the same thing in every area. But I see that as a definite win. And Mr. Hawkins has added some numbers here. The state dropped 7%. This is kind of through the COVID period and so on, whereas we dropped 2%. The additional achievements that I see, but they're not on the report card, but I'd certainly like to point them out because they are critical, is that 1st through 5th grade, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, our English language learners outperformed the state achievement average on the ELPA exam, which is the English Language Proficiency Assessment. And in reading and math fluency, those critical benchmark areas that we assess regularly, our aggregate scores across the school are higher than they have been in the 7 years that we've been assessing
And I had something because I just looked at this today. The state average, I think, was 13% proficiency on the alpha for elementary students in the elementary here had 24%. So that's pretty significant.
Thank you for bringing that up. They're a positive.
Well, the order, yeah. Right. Just hit the button.
It's in the button, there you go.
All right, the middle school's a pretty building, by the way. Thank you, everybody, for getting us that finally. Couple things, obviously, that I think are important here. The first one is our attendance, right? Obviously, we're still ahead of that. I think it's the biggest one of the measurements when you look at the comprehensive guidance plan for when you look at the state regular attendance is that. The other thing about that is we started off, I think it's really important for the middle school to note on attendance. When we fight attendance, we fight a lot of different things at the middle school that I don't think the high school or the elementary does for a couple of reasons. Our kids get to stay home a little bit more often to take care of a younger sibling. High school, they tend to send them to school. Same deal, they have athletic events that our kids miss. The other thing happened, obviously, we started in person. The middle school kids had a lot of sickness and illness, right? And so we had a lot of kids quarantined. So I think that's overall, that's a phenomenal number. I think that's pretty cool. The other neat thing about that is our male Hispanic population within that group actually has the highest attendance rate of any of our student population, which is interesting because currently they're our lowest performing students as a group. So they're coming to school, they're valuing school. We have to figure out some way to get that connection to happen. So that's one thing as a staff that we're continuing to work on. Mathematics, obviously, we're a little bit below the state average. Obviously not something we want. Same deal in English language arts. And science is definitely an area of concern that continues to trend. That came up. Science, for everybody knows that they did change the science test a little bit. And obviously, the standards are revised. So that's adapting to the new test. I think we'll do a better job of adapting that as we move forward after the COVID year. So there's a couple things there. Let's obviously look at the attendance. We talked about that a little bit. I think the cool thing about that, I'll talk a little across the board, is our attendance is pretty uniform, regardless of race. So it's pretty neat that everybody's coming to school. So kind of I hit at those 67 versus 64 uniform data for race. Males performing slightly better than females, which is cool because academically they've underperformed traditionally both our white males and our Hispanic males that are underperforming compared to our females. They do a much better job. I think that's also a reflection of Matt's preparedness for school. I think when you go back to the data looking at both male versus female students, our female students are more prepared to start kindergarten than our males have been traditionally. I think a couple things are currently neat. This year, our attendance rate as of today is 78.3 or 90% attendance, so that's 230 kids. 64 of the current 300 basically are below 90%, and of those 90%, 31 of them, however, between 85 and 90. So half of them, we've got a chance to get them above 90% attendance as the year progresses. So if we can keep that, under that 20 number, it's going to be really awesome. That's our goal anyway. A couple things, obviously, in language arts, it goes without saying across the board that all our subgroups need to improve. It doesn't matter who you are in our building. We want everybody to get better, right? And I don't like our performance in it. However, all the indicators for like every student success act, right? We're all 2s and 3s, so it means we're moving in the right direction. It's just not the academic performance we want. A couple things overall is kind of really neat. It's been one of our focuses: nonfiction writing and nonfiction reading. Informational text have been one of our areas of focus, and it's by far our best area. Our kids are doing the best in that area compared to even like literature. So we have to continue to work in some literature areas. It is one thing. And so we're a lot stronger in informational. Literary text is weaker. Really, the issues with that is the more complex thought process, like making inferences. Like right now, our English language department is arguing a lot over the elements of plot and how to describe them and make definitions. So one of the things we're struggling with is if our adults are having a hard time making the definition, how do we explain that to kids and the process? And that is a really complex process of identifying main ideas. Most of our kids can identify the characters. They sometimes struggle with the main idea. They definitely struggle later with any inferences or predictions that move forward, so any higher level thought. We just have to practice it at a higher rate. It's really the process of moving from, learning how to read to reading to learn, right? And that whole process that we're really struggling with is the middle school. It absolutely gets better as we move through the grades. So 8th grade is much better at it than 6th graders are, but we're really struggling at it still across the board. Writing's kind of the same deal. We're doing pretty good with brief writing. So like, for example, being able to do like a topic sentence, we're doing really well with that. So short paragraph, same deal with short paragraph reading. So if you look at like the state blueprint, so what they call the, computer adaptive test or the performance task, when it's like a page and a half reading that you have to summarize versus larger than that, we're struggling when it gets to be longer, which kind of makes sense. So it does continue to improve as we get older. Really, with this point, right, we're focused on a couple things like identifying the main idea. We really struggle with that as a school. An example, we were talking about it, they'll read multiple paragraphs. The paragraphs might use an example, like the paragraphs is about the life of bees, right, or whatever. And like they're going through it and they know it's about bees, but then they get stuck on other points, right? So supporting details rather than the main idea. So the process of what do good readers do, that's one of the things we're going to focus on the next couple of weeks, is identifying characteristics of good reading and really focusing on those with our kids at the PLC. So really struggling, obviously, then once again in our writing with transition strategies like connecting paragraphs and making a transition from one thought to another. Still struggling with that. And then obviously making an appropriate conclusion, right, that wraps it all together. We are really doing really well, however, in listening and research. Like our research is really great. Like we're able to read paragraphs and pull information out of that. So once again, I think it's a reflection of our, cross-curriculum focus on identifying the topics, main ideas, making a conclusion. We're just really struggling with it from a literary standpoint more than informational standpoint. Math, I think a couple cool things about, once again, all the indicators are 2s, 3s, and 4s, even though our performance level is not as high as we want it to be. I think math change levels was 4 for all subgroups, so that's awesome compared to the state in terms of math performance. Like, what were the kids' current scores are, what are they are now? So that's obviously growth is what we always focus on. So that's going really well. I think some good improvements within the concepts and procedures for all 3 grades, especially in the areas of ratios, which is something we've spent a lot of time on. Anything that's around fractional awareness, kids have struggled with, proportions, algebraic expressions, the 3-year trend data shows that continues to improve. Fraction operations, rational numbers, and Pythagorean theorem. Obviously, I think Roger spent a whole bunch of time on that in the last 2 years trying to get kids to understand A, B, and C, right, squared. So a couple things that math that I think is interesting. We continue to use iRating data. Roger's put that together, trend data all the way from the time that they've been first taking the test all the way through. There's been a lot of good things come from that. For example, like referral for SPED, like for example, when kids plateaued in 2nd grade, math level all the way across, kind of looking at, okay, this is potentially a kid that needs to be looked at for SPED services simply because they haven't improved with appropriate instruction and they've been receiving it, and also interventions. The other things that allowed us to do is place kids a little bit better in terms of what classes we're putting them in. We changed our structure with math. It's at the 6th grade level. All kids go into Math 1, which is our 6th grade math, and then we make the transition first quarter based upon their iReady scores and their academic progress first quarter, and move that 6th grade group into a 6th grade only Math 2, and retain the 7th graders in the Math 2, so we're able to kind of meet their level where they're at. So there's a progressive track for that 6th grade group. And there's also like a remediation follow back track for the kids that are 7th graders that may not be performing quite at grade level. So that's been helpful. Couple things in terms of our current iRated data, 15% of our kids are on grade level. Rogers looked at the data really well, comparing the iReady exam to the SBAC. And obviously we know that if they're at a 6.1, 7.1, or an 8.1 level, they're going to pass the state assessment. So we know that. So currently we have 15% of our kids that are on track to do that at this point in time. Obviously, one of the things that people forget about math is pretty weird because every single year they transition to another level of standards, right? And so they have to almost learn something completely new. So when you look at 15%, that's kind of concerning, but at the same time, that's already 15% of the kids that have made that basically a third of the way through the school year, right? Are on track to make that. So hopefully that number continues to improve. As a school, our goal has always been to move the top end 5% and the bottom half 5% in a year. So in 3 years, there's 15% growth for that grade level as they transition through the middle school. And really, I think that what it comes down is just continued focus on priority clusters. So when you look at the blueprint on the test, these are questions that are asked more frequently or skills that the kids have to display on a more frequent period. And I think the other thing that's big for us at the middle school is what our math adoption will, and they'll be district-wide, what our math adoption will look like this year in terms of a resource to help fill in some of the weaknesses that our kids currently display, and then obviously continue with some of the strengths that exist within our math program. Because I think there's some really good things that have come out of the using of the iReady curriculum. I think one of them is obviously discussion and talking about math, because I think kids do that a lot better. I think kids have also got better at obviously the process of story problems, but I'm not going to speak for Roger in the math department, but I will shortly that there's not enough repetition in those processes for kids to develop the skill retainment that they need to. And so we've done lots of different things like have daily warm-ups that go back and try to spiral the view and look at lower level skills that they may be deficient over the time frame. Like, for example, 3-digit multiplication, right? What's the algorithm for log division? Comparing fraction size, things like that. Converting decimals to percents, vice versa, right? And so those things are happening on a daily basis in all our math classes. So it's pretty cool. And that's kind of, I think, about it.
Right. Alrighty. I need to go last, huh?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Man, there's so much information we could share, but I'll try to hit some highlights. There we have all those cool dials right there. What do they mean? I want to start with on-time graduation. We were 88%, Oregon averaged 81%. I think previously, before COVID, we were almost always in the 90%. And so that was a drop for us. Interesting enough, that's about 10 students. When you do the math, and I graduated a class of 85, about 10 students. And so what happened? What happened to those 10 students? Those were students that, as I was a new principal in Nyssa, they were sophomores. They had struggled their freshman year, and then we tried to get them back on track, and COVID hit. And so they 2 years later, seniors, they had less than half the required credits to graduate. And so what seems like a horrible story actually had a good ending. We combined with the HEP program, which is a GED program, but it's for our migrant ed students. And so we actually did a partnership, had them on our campus, and so that they're using our classroom, our Chromebooks, and connecting with the students. We knew that our only chance to save that group of students was to transition them in a place where they still had our staff and connections with our staff, and a place where they were comfortable and familiar, and they were not discipline issues. And so as a staff, we became the cheerleaders, and the HEP program became the facilitators to get them through. And so they, interesting enough, will show up as 5-year completion on this year's report card. They didn't show up here, but we were able to account for, I believe, 8 of those 10 students, which makes that number look a lot better. Our goal is to make sure that they all complete some type of program. Ideally, we have them on track for here, for college only, but at least complete some type of program, whether it be GED, a regular diploma, modified diploma, or extended diploma. College going. That one jumped out at me. In spite of all our efforts, we're at 44%, and the Oregon average is 56%. So I'm thinking, oh my goodness, we really work hard on that one. So I want to share what we're doing. So our goal is that every senior will complete their FAFSA, the financial aid form, will apply to a college, will apply for a scholarship, and do a campus visit. And then, as much as possible, have them earning dual credits. And so in that way, we have students that, without even realizing it, they start to see themselves as a college students. And where that was never the plan, all of a sudden they say, hey, I might be able to do that. And so I think we're doing the right things. As a school, we're truly doing the right things. However, that is low. And so that's an area that we'll continue to work on.
Do we by chance know how many of our students went into a trade school or continued on with the CTV program?
I don't, and we've had a conversation where there's programs where you can, that kind of track students over time, and that is something we could do better to figure out where do they end up. Another something else that we're trying to do is back in the middle school, they take the U Science, which shows aptitude. And so trying to take students, their aptitude and their interests, and then developing their whole pathway through high school so that they're making every credit count instead of just counting credits. Instead of just saying, okay, I can take 32, I only need 24, I'm going to do 24, and I'll take the easy stuff. Instead of doing that, actually having a goal in mind, having a purpose, and then we make every credit that they can possibly take count towards that goal. And so we're designing a system where we're much more focused. Along with that, CTE has a huge piece of that. Research shows that students who come out of CTE programs go to college at the same rate, but are more likely to stay and complete their degree because they have a purpose. They know why they want to be there. And so that's big. The kids that we can connect with ag, with welding, with business, with what are the other programs? Nursing. I'm missing one. Anyway, there's 5 of them. Yeah, right, with business. So the students that we connect through our CT programs, that's a way that we can not only get them connected up here as freshmen, but also get them to college with a purpose. Let me go back to, so here, my only thought is, we're doing lots of good things, is being more intentional, starting with the middle school, with U Science, starting with our CT exploratory classes there, getting the kids connected and keeping them moving forward with a purpose so that those credits, we're making every credit count instead of counting credits. 5-year completion, these are kids, this is when they, on time, graduate in 4 years. They have the option of graduating in 5 years or doing GED. I believe that may go up a little bit because this year we have so many GED completers. But yeah, this is really the goal. So on track to graduate. If you look at the small print, those are students, freshman students who earn a quarter of their credits their freshman year. And what the state, the context there is that the state has identified that as a key transition. If we can move them successfully from the middle school to the high school and keeping them connected, then they're more likely to graduate. I forget, maybe David remembers, but I think they're like, what, 60% less likely to graduate if they're not on track their freshman year. And I'd have to look at that number, but it's not good. If you have a student who's struggling as a freshman, the likeliness that they don't want to graduate is pretty poor. And so in our building, kind of our resilience model that we've built, it's a little bit simplified, but it's been very focused, is we want to make sure every single one of those students that come in as a freshman have a key adult relationship, have a favorite class, are involved in a club and sports, and have positive peers. And that is a power formula. If I, I can tell both it's at a building level, but also the individual successes. We had a young man that earlier this year was getting goalie, did some cutting. Parents were very, very frustrated, and we regrouped. That kid is now involved in esports and choir. He's doing honor choir, where he's made friends. He has some key adults that are in his life, and currently has straight A's. And it's like, okay, this could be. He was one of those freshmen that could have gone either way, And so that's a model that's working. What does that look like? It means that we take our F list and our attendance list and we put them together, and we have those key students, and we have adoption day, where as a staff we say, okay, this freshman, he needs help. Who's got a connection? You know, and people say, I got that one. I know him from track. Okay. Or you'll have a kid that there's no connection. And we say, okay, Annalong, can you take that one? And she says, yes. Okay. Earlier today when we said that, you know, intentionally putting difficult students in her lab, teaching computer apps, she has all of the freshmen. It's a required class for freshmen. And so the fact that she can build that relationship with our freshmen and all different kinds is just, it truly is critical. It really is, it really is impressive and a critical part of helping them succeed. All right, I'm working around all these. Regular attenders. All right, 62%. Oregon average is 64. Once again, I said, ouch. I didn't like that number. I'm hoping that this report card makes us look really good next year. I remember, and Luke kind of hinted at this, I remember when we planned for last school year, we planned for a normal year. When we started that school year, COVID numbers were higher than they had ever been, but we were coming back in person. And so the first 6 weeks, every single morning, my job was to make sure that the people who had been exposed were off campus. And the ones that could now return, that I called and made sure they got back. And so at a critical time when we were needing to get all students back in school, I was sending them home and cringing. It was like painful. It's like, this is so anti-productive. And so that really hurt us. I don't think we ever caught up, with attendance. This year, doing much better. The small print there, I think we've said this, but it's students who attended more than 90% of their enrolled school days. And so, Lauren shared that our attendance, 92% as a school, roughly, we're at 92% attendance each day. This is actually counting the individual students who hit the 90% mark. And so it's a little different indicator, but I'm confident that's going to be better this year. What do we do? Well, we call home, find out where the kids are at. We enforce it with Mrs. Reese and school suspension when they skip. And we're consistent enough that the kid walks in my office and said, you skipped? I said, yeah. Okay, what happens? I got Mrs. Reese. And so kind of having that so consistent and that message communicated, in that way, sharing our expectation that students attend every single day and that they pass every class. That's key expectations. And then every conversation, we're trying with every conversation to parents sharing that you gotta be in school. Attendance is the most, it's the number one reason students get frustrated and fail. The other part of that, of course, is the classroom, making sure that our teachers are doing their part to engage students in learning, making it meaningful and relevant, that they're building those relationships. Let's see, lots of information. I can specifically with English and math, I can go into that briefly. The test scores do show a drop post-COVID. At the high school level, that's for a couple different reasons. It's because there were fewer expectations during COVID. It's because there were gaps in learning, less information was covered. But it's also because when they brought the test back after COVID, it wasn't required for graduation. And so I anticipate that there was not the same commitment in passing the test. But still, yes, there's deficits in the skills. One thing that we're doing is trying to be very, very intentional with math, with getting students correctly placed in their first math class. What we know is if they are successful in their first math class, they build their capacity as learners to go on and be successful. And math is our biggest barrier for getting a regular diploma. And so being very intentional, and Mary Woodruff has done a great job with that. When she was hired, it's like, okay, your job is to get everybody through us, for every freshman, whatever it takes, and she's done that. I mean, if the kid isn't there, she does the home visit, and she takes soup and bread, and has a conversation with the parents, and it works. But she's committed to doing whatever it takes to get those kids through their first class and building the math capacity. In English, we have done a couple things. We have English 9 foundations. So our students who they're ready for grade level curriculum, but they need more supports, smaller class, and we've created that class. And that has had some success. And then we offer English skills, which is 2 periods, with the idea that if we double the time, then we can get, you would hope, at least 1.5 years of growth in a year, if not more. That's the goal. But that is, I mean, it's basic, and it's regular ed and sped kids, but it goes back to your phonics and your decoding and your using the context, building vocabulary, comprehension, and basically still teaching reading so that those kids can get through. And so that along with our ELL and our sped support has helped our struggling students. So there's a lot that we're doing. Like I said earlier, I hope that this report card makes our next one look good. It is going to take time to get back in full swing after COVID. And I have the conversation with teachers when they say, I'm doing the same thing I did for 16 years and it ain't working. And that's when we, of course, through reflection, say, it's not the same kids we've had for 16 years. It's not going to work. And so definitely a time of transformation, making sure that we're teaching the whole child, that we keep every child safe, healthy, engaged, supported, and challenged. And so that's what we're trying to do. Anyway, a whole lot of information. If you'd like more details, then do give me a call. It's something I enjoy talking about. Makes me remember all the reasons why I love my job. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. So hopefully, our goal is to get you guys the story behind the picture. Right? Looking at that face value, it's like, okay, what does this mean? Where does that go? You see a plan from kindergarten all the way up how we're supporting our kids. And that's the story. It's like, well, I see they're at 30% or 40%. That may be right at state level, but here's our trend. This is where we're going. Because really, at the end of the day, there's one picture that matters, right? And that's the story that we're at. And so I just kind of want to leave it with that you guys know where our kids are going in our process, and taking this snapshot is good for us to look at, but this is the story from kindergarten readiness all the way to here. And so thank you for your time. And again, if you have any more questions or anything, please answer our building, but hopefully you guys can now answer. This is what it means. This is where we're going. So thank you.
Thank you. As I'll stay up there, Mr. Hopkins.
Who's next?
Okay.
Don't worry, we'll be good on that. Proposed ELD curriculum adoption. We were to adopt ELD curriculum this year. We are requesting to forego that for this year. Araceli and I have been talking, and she's been working with ODE and our elementary and our middle school, and we would like to adopt a new curriculum next year. We're looking at different models, what's best for our kids, and so we would like to propose the ODE that we adopt it next year, not this year. And so that's why we're bringing it to you guys. Any questions about that? Perfect.
Just because you need more time to make this.
Yeah, and I think that with really Araceli and her new role, she's really digging into it and saying, what is the best for our kids? What are those numbers? And for, she ran up, hey, I was looking at it. Anyway, so to understand our model, and I think that the model what we built upon is different. ODE is coming with us, like, actually means this. No, it means this. I mean, it is taking more time to study it and say what is the best for Nyssa. And so that's why we'd like to continue with our current practices, and then next year adopt a new curriculum.
The other issue along with that is not only understand our processes and why we're purchasing something, but also to provide training to the teachers. And right now is not the time for that, so.
Debbie, can you add to that?
Yeah,
Go
I'd like
ahead.
to do a needs assessment and see where we're at, and we're gonna partner with somebody different from OE who's gonna help us study the ELP standards, and so we make a really informed decision before we spend a lot of money on it.
Yep. We still on it, so.
So we do have curriculum that we're using that is still good, and it was approved by ODE, it's still in really good shape, and so kids will have access to high quality materials still for this year.
So I would ask if the board could make a motion to maybe approve that. We do have to, I have to let OEE know that yes, the board approved it on the date, or we can, again, study it and bring it back in December, but I would like to get it done sooner rather than later. So it's up to you guys. If you guys want to table it for next time or and study it more. So.
And it would be ready to go for the beginning of 2023-2024.
Yes, my brain is yes, 2023, 2024, next year, that you are correct. So,
I think that we should make sure that we're spending our money wisely and getting what we need.
We're also doing lots of really cool things this year that's new, and so I don't, too much new, I want to implement it kind of in a rolling basis also, so.
Somebody want to make a motion?
So I would propose that we allow the delay in curriculum adoption until next year.
So second? Okay, all in favor? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
And Mr. Hawkins, are you going to
Okay.
And
Okay.
Mr. Hawkins, we will get an updated report on how this is moving along.
Yes, before it's adopted, we're going to come to you and say, here's what we'd like to adopt, and it's going to be based on our rubric, all of those things. We're actually doing the same work right now with math, because math needs to be adopted for next year as well. And so Roger's part of that group, and they're really working. They're just like infant stages about let's start looking at these things. So, but yes, you will get a report on that. Hopefully sooner rather than later. In January? Okay. Okay, so this really I'll have to explain what it means. So Oregon has come out mandated what is known as PPFL, paid personal family leave, is that correct? Or is it?
Paid family.
But yeah, there it is. So essentially what it is that it is a requirement of all employers to put this kind of a bank aside that the employer and the employees pay into to take additional paid leave. And so Oregon has modeled it after Washington's model. And so what we have to do is we have until the 20th of this month to make a decision what we want to do. So there are, on here, you'll see there are 3 plans, and I'll go into it a little bit. The middle one is the plan for Oregon. It is based on a 1% of the employee's salary. The district is required to pay, under that model, 40% of it, and the employee is 60% of that 1%. And so that'll come out of their paycheck every month. That starts in January for the Oregon model, even though employees can't access it until September, but we have to start paying that in January under that model. And so really what they're doing with the Oregon model is they're building that bank.
You said employers are paying 40, the staff is paying 60?
60, yep. So, and there's a couple nuances to that, and then the employee can pay no more than 60% of their salary. If the district wanted to put in 100%, they have the ability to, but they can't pay more than 60% of that leave.
So how much, explain the extended time that they can take off. Are you talking like maternity leave or?
It could be maternity leave, it could be mental health, it could be just a myriad of things. It has to fall under
When your sick leave goes out.
So it falls under kind of FMLA,
Yeah.
but there's also a new one that they've added that if you're a victim of harassment, sexual violence, that type of thing, that you can also take a leave for that too. And it falls under this paid.
And you get paid.
When your sick leave runs out, you use it.
No, you don't even have that.
Yeah.
You don't have to vacate your sick leave to take this, as you do with FMLA or OFLA.
And then the requirements of taking this leave is, as far as what they say is family and those kind of things, it's opened up. And so there's as, I mean, I think Christy and Crystal talked to the representative from Regional Oregon for the Oregon plan, and they said, we're working on it. And so there are a lot of questions that I think Christy threw for a loop with her questions. And so they're working on that. So that is the state plan. There's a couple kind of issues with it that, and this is kind of a lot of personal, studying and looking at it. They model after the Washington plan, and I think started at 0.6, and they just came back to legislators and said, hey, we need another 300 million because we didn't get it right. It's kind of like PERS, right? And then so my question was, did you guys get an actuary? Did you actually study it? They said, well, we just kind of modeled it after Washington. So not even saying that this model is going to work under that. So in the pink there, and I'll just kind of go with the pink, that is the American Fidelity. So what we went out is we got some competing bids to say, okay, is there other models that we can go? So under the personal, say it again, please.
Paid family leave.
Paid family leave, there it is that you can have a competing kind of this leave in this bank as long as it meets these minimum requirements. It has to offer your employees this. And so we went out and got two other bids. One's from American Fidelity, as you can see in the pink, and theirs is also at a rate of 1.0. And you'll see kind of the same numbers up here. The difference with American Fidelity and the principal plan over here, American Fidelity, we start paying in September. We don't pay in January. Employees don't start taking it out of their check in January. They pay in September when they can actually use it. So there's a large cost savings there based on the Oregon plan of that. And so I met with them, and so that's kind of a really big highlight for that, is that we as an employer and employees don't pay into it until we can start taking it. The principal plan, the difference, and I will say the American Fidelity plan, they modeled it after the Oregon one, and I said, well, American Fidelity works with us. Would you guys kind of like our staff and look at it, what our actual numbers can be for that grade? They said, no, we'll just model it after Oregon. So that's why they came out at 1.0. The principal plan came in at a rate actually 0.96%. So they're the only ones that studied Nyssa. They looked at our employees, their ages, and a lot of the staff that take the leave would be maternity leave. Anyway, so they take all of that data, and they said, actually, what we can do is offer that same thing that Oregon does and American Fidelity at a rate of 0.96. And so if you look through that so their total for 2 years would cost kind of around, that's with everybody with employees, $98,000. The total for 2 years for the Oregon plan is $146,000, and American Fidelity is $97,000. So the difference of the American Fidelity in that one is that it comes in like $4,000 less.
But that's not paying until September.
And it's not paying until September, yep. And so it's the same as that one. So both of these private companies will start paying in September, not now. That is a lot of information in a small amount of time. So.
And they want this by the 20th?
Yep.
And we're just now hearing about it.
No, we've had it, since, I want to say July it started coming out and really looking into it. And that's, like these companies creating a model on that. Yes.
I was just gonna add, I know it seems like super short notice, Jeremy, but nobody really had answers for us, because Christy and I have been at conferences, online for a year and a half asking, and nobody has answers. And still, when we met with the lady that's gonna work for the state plan, she still couldn't give us answers on what their processes are gonna be to answer our questions. So yes, it feels like a rushed decision, but we've been trying to get as much information as we can.
And this has also been delayed twice. This was passed a couple of years ago.
2019.
Yeah, and so they've delayed even rolling this out 2 different times because they just don't know, really. We're asking questions and we're not getting answers.
So what we are asking is that we have a form that we can send into Oregon Department of Education with a $250 application fee. But we would like to go with this principal plan. And not only is it cost savings, but we have somebody who is just dedicated in Oregon just for our people. We have a connection actually to them. The turnaround, there's a lot of kind of work with it. Oregon, we're saying that there could be a turnaround if somebody wants to access that leave of maybe 2 weeks at best. Principal Plan and American Fidelity both said, within 3 to 5 days, we can get your employees paid. Anyway, it just sounds like they have a better model. They've actually studied our staff, and so that's why we would like to go with the Principal Plan. And so that's what we're proposing to you tonight, is we go with Principal Plan as the cost savings of that. But I feel like we get better service. However, after a year, we can always go back on the Oregon Plan if it doesn't work out. So, and like I said, right away, it's going to save our employees money.
So I realize this is something we have to do because it's state law, but there's no way around it. We have to adopt something. Where are we planning on getting $35,000 per employee over every 2 years? Where's that going to come from?
Hi, if you've been on the budget committee, you've noticed I've been planning for this. I've budgeted for 2 years, maybe 3 years now. So it is in the budget for the employer side. Now on the employee side, it's just going to be something that comes out of all of our checks.
Yep.
It's a lot. It's just like paying our unemployment tax or workday tax. We're not going to get away from that as an employee. But the employer side, it's budgeted.
Good job. I remember that. Good job, Crystal.
You mentioned that we can start with the principal plan and fall back to the Oregon state plan.
Yeah.
Can it not go the other way? Start with the principal and fall back on the American Fidelity?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, absolutely can. What we're saying is after a year, we're not locked in. We can. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And what we asked them as well is to do, because with insurance companies after a couple of years, I mean, they get better numbers. And so it could go up or down, right, based on that. And so,
Yes, Ms. Rudeau.
I'm sorry. I have a lot to say because it affects these two people right here the most. Our personal recommendation, please let us go on a principal plan because we want to give the state time to work out the bugs. And they're just talking to the other two companies, they seem to have it so much more together that's going to help us because I don't want to work 90-hour weeks. We don't need any more on our plate, and this is going to be huge because it goes along with all the other leaves that we have to track.
Well, also the fear is with, they saw what happened with the COVID leave and getting the money out into people's hands going through the state. And sometimes there was a very, very long delay. And if you're using this leave, you need money, and it'd be paid out on a weekly basis by the state. And so going with the principal plan, for our employees, the likelihood of them getting money in their pockets sooner, then instead of sitting there with the state plan, which you don't know. We don't know how many banks there are. I think she said something like maybe 5 different pods of people working. So it would be better off for our employees to access this than the state plan. They could be waiting months to get their money, just because they don't know what they're looking at yet.
All right.
that's why the recommendation is principal plan as well. And if you guys remember in negotiations, we equated that as well. So we've been ready for it.
Vote on that too.
So I would like to. The only thing I will say that we haven't discussed is that the employee is 0.6 max with this new plan, 0.96. Are we going to split the difference, or is it going to be? Yeah, that we haven't done. We would just like to go with the plan and then kind of figure the other percentage out later. So, if you guys are okay with that.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion to go with the principal plan?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Okay.
Yeah, sorry. And guess what? I am done. And that is a lot, yes.
Okay, board study, we have 3
See, I don't have time to
policies
clean.
that
We're
need
doing
to
this stuff.
have further discussion.
Suggest that we,
Anybody? I know, we're all kind of.
Do any of them need to be passed today? No, they can all wait.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and table those 3 until further down the road.
More bedtime.
Yes. All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you all.
I'll see you this long ever again.